Human optimization, living our lives where we're optimizing our purpose and our potential, running our businesses or working in businesses that also optimize potential. The potential of their staff, their customers, their goods, their services. It sounds quite delightful, doesn't it? Maybe some people think it sounds tad naive. Who in the room, like me, has struggled a little bit with actually thinking that they're living to their potential and purpose? Who in the room actually wonders what on earth their purpose is? Most of you know it? Good. Well, that's quite unusual, because normally when I ask that question, very few people do. So we all kind of agreed that we don't know that we're optimizing our potential. And fortunately, everyone in this room does know what their purpose is. But for many, many people, that's actually not the case. And the reason why this is the case is because people don't know who they are. They don't know who they are at that very, very deep level. And that it's when we know who we are, when we really have the courage and the vulnerability to face ourselves, that we find out what our values are, what our purpose is, and we can then go out and actually live a life that will hopefully optimize those. Because what goes along with self-awareness is full responsibility for your life. Full responsibility for your life. Why is this important? Sadly, people are going to their deathbeds with regret. What's the number one regret of the dying? Anyone have an idea? A guess?
Marry the wrong woman.
Wasn't in there. Nothing to do with family was in there. And there's top 5 regrets. The number one regret of the dying is, I wish I had the courage to live the life that I wanted to lead, rather than the life that other people expected of me. I wish I had the courage to live the life I wanted to lead, rather than the life other people expected of me. We're actually hardwired to live our life focused on what other people think, feel, desire, and want for us. Or actually, we're hardwired to live our life according to what we think people think, want, or desire of us. And self-awareness is the complete opposite of that. Self-awareness is about taking that very, very, very deep journey within to find out who you truly are, instead of living your life as we're biologically wired to, which is reacting to everything out there. So that then we end up on our deathbeds going, shoot, this isn't actually what I wanted. This is what I thought people wanted of me, but it's not actually what I wanted. Now, self-awareness takes an enormous amount of vulnerability and an enormous amount of courage. Because in order to become self-aware, we've got to look at those ugly little bits of ourselves. Now, we may delude ourselves that we don't have them, but most of us, what we're doing is we're actually carrying a lot of shame about those areas of ourselves. But the reality of it is, all of us have them. We all have parts of ourselves that are not so pleasant. That's maybe vindictive, jealous, spiteful, cowardly, aggressive, violent, nasty, whatever. We all have them. And until we face them and realize and acknowledge what they are, we're kind of living our life like someone who's in the water and holding a basketball underwater. Has anyone ever tried to hold a basketball underwater? Like, seriously, have you ever tried it? What happens? Exactly. So first of all, it takes enormous amounts of energy to do that, right? So while you're using all your energy doing that, that's another reason why you're not living to your potential, because you're using a lot of energy keeping this hidden down. And what happens? You get exhausted, your hands come up, and yes, it shoots out. It hits you in the face or it hits somebody else in the face. Does that sound familiar? Anyone ever found themselves in an argument with a loved one, particularly if you have teenage children, and suddenly the words that are coming out of your mouth are just exactly how you said you would never be as a partner or a parent and God forbid, how often when they come out do they actually sound like your mother or your father? Self-awareness is being in that water and having the basketball right there on the top. How much energy does it take to hold a basketball on top of water? Hardly anything. You can hold it with one finger. And when that drive, that spiteful part, the nasty part, the whatever part, the cowardly part comes out, it's like the basketball's floating to the front. And it only takes that amount of energy then to bring it back. So that's self-awareness. And in order to do it, we need to be courageous and we need to be vulnerable. It's what I refer to as awakening the vulnerable warrior. We all have a warrior energy inside of us, that part of us that wants to achieve, that wants to have purpose, impact, that wants to find meaning in this life. But a warrior doesn't just push, because in order to really fully achieve, we need to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable is the most courageous thing you'll ever do. And to be really truly courageous is the most vulnerable thing you'll do. They're flip sides of the same coin. Hence the reason why I refer to it as vulnerable warrior. Because we all want to be a warrior, don't we? We all want to be a warrior. Because you know what? Life's not fair. Injustices exist. Malevolence exists. Nastiness, unkindness, cruelty. It's a given that you're going to encounter it. It's a given. But with true self-awareness and true full responsibility for your life, you're going to expect that, and you actually have the skills and ability to deal with that. Because trauma will impact on you. Every single person in this room. And if it doesn't impact on you directly, it will impact on the people that you love, which means it impacts on you. So self-awareness is really important. The research shows Dr. Tasha Eurich is an organisational clean psych who has done lots and lots of research, or even research actually. She did a bit of research. See, I haven't even had my morning wine. That's what the problem is, isn't it? She's done lots of research into human potential in both individuals and organisations. And self-awareness is the number one thing that comes out. People who have got high levels of self-awareness have got more productive relationships, they're happier, they're more content, they're healthier, they communicate better. They run far more profitable and successful businesses. They have a better life. They're more content within themselves. They take responsibility. And conversely, they're less likely to lie, cheat, and steal. Tell that to the bankers, exactly. The old slippery slope. There's a whole workshop. I can do a whole day on that one, honey. So, how many people in the room identify as being self-aware? The statistics show, when I asked how many people describe themselves as self-aware, around about 95% of people will. But when independently assessed, and it is an independent assessment, you would take the assessment and the person closest to you takes the assessment, guess how many people actually are self-aware?
33%. 20%. 14.
10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. Similarly, psychologists who have been researching human behaviour and motivation also realise that around 80% of the motivation for our behaviour is unknown to us. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We don't know who we are. So as Tasha says, 80% of us are kidding ourselves about how much we're kidding ourselves. So this journey within involves a lot of courage and vulnerability. As I said, we've got to look at that basketball and gently bring it up to the surface and find out who we are. This became really, really apparent to me not so long ago. So I always thought that I was fairly self-aware. I've worked in the charitable sector for 20 years, 12 as a CEO. I've been on a journey of personal development for 35 years, doing the work and doing the research. So I thought that I really was a warrior. I had it together. I knew what was going on. But I discovered that I wasn't quite as vulnerable as I needed to be when I encountered some trauma and a huge injustice. And that similarly, I didn't take full responsibility for it. The last organisation I was running was an Aboriginal health promotion charity. We were kicking goals like you wouldn't believe. When I started, the organisation was a nanosecond away from insolvency. So, like all good Italian financial managers, got my head down, worked hard, turned it around, and literally in 7 years of being there, had tripled the turnover. I had a massive succession plan for the staff that were there who were all Aboriginal, and we were seriously kicking goals, changing young people's lives, improving attendance at school, improving behaviour, improving grades. It was fantastic. But sadly on the horizon, there was a little problem that was about to come into my world. That problem was a new board member who decided that he wanted to take the organisation back to being just a sports organisation instead of a health organisation, which it was now, and decided he wanted it to be all Aboriginal. So that meant suddenly I was a problem. So despite the fact we had great succession plans and we had a fabulously engaged team, I wasn't leaving quick enough for him. So to cut a long story short, because we need a couple of bottles of wine to go through this one, I'll give you the tip. Friday afternoon, I ended up grabbing my phone, grabbing my laptop, fleeing the office and literally never returning. Sacked on the spot, no money, no payout, do not pass go, do not collect $200, Karyn. And I never returned. Now, of course, I sued them for unfair dismissal. And of course, I've now turned that around to be the best thing that's happened to me because I'm thriving and doing what I really wanted to do. But that was brutal. And it wasn't until afterwards I realised the role that I had played in that. Because what I had done during that, I was so focused on out there, on the injustice, on how unfair it was, how inappropriate, instead of actually dealing with the fact, honey, the game's up. You've been here for 7 years, you've done amazing stuff, it's all good, but the tide has turned and you're no longer needed. I didn't face the true reality, and I also wasn't truly vulnerable. Because if I was truly vulnerable, I thought I was courageous by dealing with the bullying and the undermining for about 6 months. But I wasn't vulnerable. And the vulnerability would have been just to go on and meet this man, sat down, say, okay, Wayne, obviously we've got a bit of a problem here, buddy. How are we going to work this out? No, it wasn't you. You're the wrong colour, my love. So,
oh, hang on, that's
so, and I didn't do that. And why I didn't do that was because you know what my little basketball is under here? It's a fiery Italian temper. And I'm Scorpion as well. So I was a little worried that if I went and saw him, I'd want to rip his lungs out.
Question. Where was the location? Where were you?
I was in Perth. Yep. I was
So
in
you
Perth.
weren't real Aborigines
I'll shelve that question. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So the message was, thank you. The lesson was that I was too scared of this part of me jumping out, that ugly part that's really angry and aggressive. And I was also fighting reality. I wasn't really a vulnerable warrior. So This is why my message is to people, for all of us, we can actually do this. And there's 3 key tips to develop self-awareness. Now, I run full-day workshops on this. In fact, I run multiple workshops on this. But for everybody here, here's 3 very good tips that you need in order to develop your vulnerable warrior. And the first one is self-reflection. But self-reflection and self-absorption is not the same thing. I'm sure we all know that person who constantly talks about themselves and rah, 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 and I'm sitting this and I want that and I'm this and I'm that. That's called narcissism, okay, and immaturity. That is not called self-awareness. So as the Dr. Urich identified with those people who truly were self-aware, the self-reflection involves asking what and not why. What's happening? What role did I play in it? What do I want to happen? What's the best version of me? And how would I like this to play out? As opposed to, why is this happening? Why me? Why? Why can't it just be different? So we find out who we are when we can ask those questions constantly. What's happening? What's my role? What am I going to do about it? What are my values? What are my purpose? What's the best version of Karyn going to do to deal with this? The second thing is mindfulness and meditation. Now, not everybody knows exactly what mindfulness is. And mindfulness and meditation are not the same thing. Mindfulness is a state of being present in the very moment, right here, right now. Not worried about what people are thinking, not worried about what's happened in the past, not fearful of the future, but being right here, present, right now. Meditation is a tool, a practice to help you become mindful. If you went back 15 years ago, you could probably find a handful of articles on meditation. Now there are thousands and thousands and thousands, and you're reading them in the Harvard Business Review, as well as Psychology Today, as well as your hippie magazines. It's seriously powerful and important. And again, you only need 8 minutes a day. Now, I know we're all terribly busy and terribly fabulous people, but we've all got an extra 8 minutes a day. Agreed? Yep. And start with 5. Set your alarm clock 5 minutes early. Start with 5 minutes. Before you know it, you'll be up to 8 minutes. And when you meditate, there is no such thing as failing. Who here has tried meditation and thought, I can't do it because I can't stop my mind? Yeah. Guess what? No one can stop your mind from thinking. Those yogis who go up to the mountain and spend 10 years hiding in the cave, they haven't stopped their mind from thinking. That's called being dead. So meditation is a process of concentrating on one thing like your breath and constantly coming back to your breath every time you find your mind wandering without doing that and beating yourself up for it. It's the process of coming back. And if you find that you're suddenly 25 items down in your shopping list, it's okay. Just come back to the breath. Seriously, it works. It really, really works. And the third and final thing is a healthy body. We can't really, truly have a healthy mind and a healthy psychology without a healthy body. And again, it's very simple. We complicate things so much. At present, we've got paleo diet, vegan diet, vegetarian diet. Goodness, now people are actually talking about the carnivorous diet, just eating meat. Okay? So again, don't listen to all the clutter and what's going on out here and what the world is telling us it should be. Listen to yourself and listen to your body. We've all got different DNA. Some people need high fat, high protein. Some people might, me being Italian, we need high carbs.
Yeah, true.
That's right. Give us the pasta. So you just need to eat a variety of food as least processed as possible and move your body on a regular basis. Get the heart rate up. Again, that can be walking, that can be running, that can be going to the gym, that can be doing yoga at home, that can be walking around the park, it can be Zumba, whatever it is you want to do. It can be playing golf, social sport, whatever. Find what works for you. And the same with food. Just ask yourself 3 questions. How's my energy levels during the day? Are they pretty cool? Do I feel pretty alert? Am I sleeping okay? And do I get that afternoon slump? Because as long as your energy levels are great and you're feeling alert, you're sleeping well, and you're not having an afternoon slump, your diet works for you. Simple. And stick to it. So self-awareness, it's crucially important. We can't take full responsibility for our lives. We can't optimize our potential and our purpose without it. And in order to do so, we need to be courageous and we need to be vulnerable. Because when you do that and you look at those parts of yourself, you actually forgive yourself because you realize that we're all human, we've all got this. And if you can forgive yourself for them, then you can forgive other people. So self-reflect. Ask what, not why. Meditate regularly. Just focus on coming back to the breath. Again, be gentle on yourself. And the third thing, look after your body. Because you too deserve to and can live an optimal life. Thank you.